In the ancient city of Damascus, where the morning wind carries the scent of jasmine and old stone, there lived a merchant named Rashid. He was known in every market, from Baghdad to Cordoba. His caravans crossed the desert. His ships sailed the Mediterranean. He was not known for his wealth, but for his honesty and faithfulness to his word. People said, "Rashid trades in trust, and trust returns to him as gold." Rashid had a wife named Layla. He married her when she was 16, and he was 30. She was the daughter of a poor weaver. Rashid saw in her not beauty, though she was beautiful, but what he had sought all his life, a silence that needs no words, and a light that never dims. He loved her with a depth that needs no proof. Layla bore him 2 sons and a daughter. His house was full of laughter. His caravans brought not only silks and spices, but joy. It seemed that fate itself favored this house. But fate rarely allows happiness to last without trials. Into Damascus came a man named Farid. He was handsome, with eyes that burned like coal and speech that enveloped like silk. He was hired by Rashid as a scribe. He recorded accounts, prepared caravan documents, handled correspondence with overseas merchants. Rashid trusted him as he trusted all who crossed his threshold. He did not know that trust is followed by betrayal. Farid saw Layla every day. He heard her voice. He watched her adjust her scarf, saw her eyes laugh at children's mischief. Within him, a passion ignited. Not love, but a passion that demands only one thing: to possess. Farid began with small gestures. He sought meetings in corridors. He left flowers, then notes filled with poetry that grasped at the heart. "You are a star that no one sees but me," one read. Layla was frightened. She loved her husband, but Farid was persistent. He whispered, "You deserve more than a merchant who thinks only of his cargo." His words settled in her like sand in the cracks of stone, slowly but inexorably. She began to notice what she had not seen before, that her husband was often absent, that his embraces had grown shorter. In that emptiness, Farid's voice grew louder. She resisted for weeks, then months. But one evening, when Rashid had left on a caravan and the children were asleep, Farid entered the courtyard where Layla sat alone. He simply stood before her, and she could not find the strength to leave. She stayed. And so began what would destroy them all. Months passed. Rashid knew nothing. He returned home with gifts, smiled at his children, kissed Layla on the forehead, and fell asleep with the sleep of the righteous. She woke at night and wept so that no one would hear. But the truth cannot sleep forever. One day, an old servant who had seen Farid leaving the courtyard late at night told everything. Within a month, all of Damascus knew that Rashid's wife was betraying him with the scribe. Rashid heard the whispers in the market. He understood. He returned home, not angry, but calm, like the surface of a lake before a storm. He called Farid and said, "You are free. Leave and never return." Farid left without looking back. Then Rashid called Layla. She entered, pale, with eyes frozen in fear. She fell to her knees without a word. Rashid stood over her. He could have struck her. He could have cast her out. But he loved her too deeply, or too foolishly. He said quietly, "I know everything. I will not let you go. I will not erase your guilt, but I am ready to forget it, if you are ready to live with this knowledge." Layla raised her head. There was such pain in her eyes that Rashid briefly regretted his decision, but he did not waver. "This will be hard," he said. "People will whisper. Your shadow will remind me every day of what happened. But if you stay, we will try to begin again." Rashid extended his hand and helped her rise. "You are my wife, and I choose you, despite everything." Days turned into months. Layla tried. She was the perfect wife. But Rashid could not forget. Every night, he saw her image, but beside it stood the shadow of betrayal. She sat at the dinner table, but he did not see her. He saw the courtyard, the night, the whispers. He stopped holding her hand in public. He stopped looking at her the way he once had. She lived in his house, but was a stranger. She saw his eyes grow cold when she entered the room. She understood. Her punishment was not that he was absent, but that he was present, but not with her. One night, Rashid said, "You are here, but I do not see you. You speak, but I do not hear you. Every time I look at you, I see his hands, his eyes, his shadow that has fallen between us." Layla embraced him from behind and whispered, "I know you are suffering. I know my guilt will never disappear, but I am ready to wait until your pain subsides." Rashid turned and looked into her eyes. They were full of tears, but there was a spark within them, the same one he had seen when he first met her. He said nothing. But that night, they slept holding hands. A year passed. Rashid and Layla lived in a peace that only resembled peace. They talked, ate together, raised their children. But between them, the shadow still stood, a shadow that would not disappear, no matter how much light was poured upon it. One day, Rashid set out on a caravan journey to Baghdad. He stopped for the night at an oasis. By the fire, he met a dervish. An old man in coarse wool sat in silence. Rashid sat beside him. "You look like a man carrying a heavy burden," said the dervish. Rashid told everything, about Layla, about Farid, about his forgiveness. The dervish listened. When Rashid finished, the dervish closed his eyes and said, "He who forgives betrayal will be one of two things. If you forgave from the heart, freedom from pain awaits you, and you will live as if it never happened. If you forgave but did not forget, a slow death awaits you, not of the body, but of the soul." "How do I know if I forgave from the heart?" Rashid asked. "Simply," the dervish replied, "if you look at her and hear her laughter without regret, you have forgiven. If you take her hand and do not remember his hand, you have forgiven. If you say, 'I love you,' and feel no bitterness, you have forgiven." Rashid was silent. He understood he had not forgiven. He had forgiven with his mind, but not his heart. He had forgiven with words, but not his soul. He had forgiven so as not to appear weak. But inside, he held a coal that smoldered and burned, consuming him from within. The dervish continued, "Forgiveness of betrayal can lead to great good or great evil. It depends on who forgives and who is forgiven. If the one forgiven did not understand the depth of their fall, if they accepted forgiveness as a right, not a gift, if they continue to seek excuses and do not take responsibility, then forgiveness becomes permission, not salvation. They begin to think, 'I was forgiven once, so I will be forgiven again.' They cease to respect the one who showed generosity. They confuse kindness with foolishness. Then forgiveness destroys not only the one forgiven, but also the one who forgives. For to forgive one who has not repented, not changed, not learned their lesson, is to accustom them to sin. Forgiveness turns into poison. It numbs the conscience." The dervish looked into Rashid's eyes. "Before forgiving, ask yourself, what am I forgiving? With sincere repentance? Or am I forgiving because I fear loneliness? If you forgive out of fear, you are bargaining, not forgiving. If you forgive because you are ashamed to admit your choice was a mistake, you are deceiving yourself. If you forgive because you were told you must forgive, you are fulfilling another's will. True forgiveness is only possible when you see, before you is one who fell but rose, who does not seek excuses, who says, 'It happened because I did wrong, and I acknowledge it.'" End of quote. If you see this, forgive. If not, do not rush. Wait. Observe. If after a year, 2, 3, you see that the person has changed, then forgiveness will be true. But if you forgive one who has not changed, you condemn both them and yourself to slow destruction. They will grow accustomed to being unmonitored, and you will grow accustomed to being betrayed. "How do I know she has changed?" asked Rashid. "You will know it not by her words," the dervish replied. "Words are cheap. You will know it by her eyes when she looks at you, by how she speaks of you when you cannot hear, by how she treats your shadow." True repentance does not ask, it proves. It does not say, "Forgive me." It says, "I have changed." It does not wait for reward. It is grateful for every day beside you. If you see that she has become different, not because she is afraid, but because she understood, then forgive boldly. If she has remained the same, but has only become more careful, then your forgiveness will not be freedom, but a chain. The dervish rose. "You can live with this coal until the end of your days, or you can pour water on it. The water is called forgiveness without residue. If you can say to her, 'I remember everything, but it no longer matters. I choose you today as you are, without the past,' then you will be free. If not, you will live in a prison you built yourself." The dervish left. Rashid sat long by the fire, gazing at the stars. When he returned to Damascus, he entered the house. Layla sat in the garden watering flowers. She saw him and smiled. That timid, uncertain smile he had so rarely seen lately. In that moment, he understood the dervish was right. He approached Layla and said, "I left to think. I want to ask you about what will be. Do you stay with me because you fear losing this home? Or do you have other reasons?" Layla looked at him with a long gaze. There was no fear in her eyes, only silence. "I stay," she said, "not because I fear losing a home, but because I understood who I almost lost. I understood that you are the only person who looked at me as no one else has. And I am ready to wait as long as it takes for you to see in me the one you once took as your wife." Rashid looked at her for a long time. He searched her eyes for a shadow of her former lies, her former weakness. But he saw only the truth. This was not the Layla who had fallen 3 years ago. This was the Layla who had risen. He embraced her and said, "I forgive you, Layla, not because I must, not because I fear loneliness, but because I see you have changed, and I choose today's you, not yesterday's." Layla dropped the watering can and wept. "I waited 3 years for this. 3 years I did not know who I was to you, wife or guest. I lived in this house, but felt like a stranger." Rashid held her. "From now on, know this is your home, forever." That night, they sat in the garden, drank tea, and spoke of simple things, of the children, of the weather, of his next caravan. Layla laughed, sincerely, freely, without looking back. Rashid watched her and understood that forgiveness is not a gift to another, it is a gift to oneself. He chose freedom, and he saw that Layla too had chosen freedom from her past, from her weakness, from her fear. Many years passed. Rashid grew wealthier. His children grew up. Layla's hair turned white, but her eyes shone. They did not live without clouds. There is no life without clouds. But they lived in the present. When an old friend asked Rashid how he had survived betrayal and stayed with his wife, he smiled and said, "I understood that to love is to forgive, and to forgive is to let go. But you can only let go of someone who wants to be freed. If a person does not change, your forgiveness is useless. If they change, it is priceless." And since then, in Damascus, they say, "If you forgive, let go. If you let go, live." But remember, he who forgives betrayal will be met either by freedom, if he forgave with wisdom and the one forgiven has changed, or by new pain, if he forgave one who did not understand their fall.